मिर्जा साहब, सबसे पहले मैं आपका पूरी हॉस्पिटैलिटी इंडस्ट्री की तरफ से और ऋषिहुड यूनिवर्सिटी की तरफ से और गेटवे एजुकेशन के स्टूडेंट्स, फैकल्टी, स्टाफ, ट्रस्टीज, मैनेजमेंट और सभी की तरफ से आपका बहुत बहुत इस्तकबाल करता हूं और तहे दिल से शुक्रिया कि आपने अपने कीमती वक्त में से हमारे लिए थोड़ा सा वक्त निकाला इस गुफ्तगू के लिए, जो कि आई एम श्योर विच इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी वेरी हेल्पफुल एंड इंफॉर्मेटिव फॉर द हॉस्पिटैलिटी फ्रैटर्निटी, वेदर दे आर स्टूडेंट्स और टीचर्स। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया मिर्जा साहब हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए और थैंक यू सर। Let me give a very brief introduction of today's speaker and today's expert of the subject, who is Shahanshah Mirza. Shahanshah Mirza is the great-great-grandson of King Wajid Ali Shah, the last ruler of Awadh. He is a senior officer at present in the GST Department in the Ministry of Finance and currently posted in the city of Calcutta. He is a life member of INTACH and is passionate about preserving the glorious heritage of India. He is a regular speaker at various forums and talks on different issues. Mr. Mirza is a dedicated green and social activist and has planted thousands of saplings. He has co-authored 2 books, Calcutta, A Built Heritage and Calcuttadotes. So this is a brief about Shahanshah Mirza, our guest of honor today. And Shahanshah, with your permission, I would like to be little filmy today.
Please go ahead.
In the form of welcoming you. So please permit me for that.
Yes, yes.
No doubt कि पहले जब उस जमाने में ऐसा होता होगा तो ये चीजें बहुत नॉर्मल थी, लेकिन जब आज के जमाने में हम इस तरह के स्लोगन्स और इस तरह की चीजें जब देखते हैं तो बहुत ही रॉयल सी फीलिंग दिमाग में और दिल में आती है. सो आई मस्ट से कि अजीमो शान शहनशाह मरहबा 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 मरहबा. Welcome sir, welcome.
Thank you.
So let me give a brief introduction about the Mughlai cuisine, very brief, before we leave the platform to the speaker, today's speaker. The famous Mughlai cuisine evolved in medieval India during the Mughal Empire. The cuisine that portrays a mix of culinary styles and recipes of North India is highly influenced by the cuisines of Central Asia that has a rich history of rule of the Turkish and Mongolian Mughal empires. The Mughlai cuisine is generally quite spicy, rich, and heavy, marked with a very unique aroma. It has over time remained one of the most popular and favorite cuisines among foodies across our nation. The Mughlai cuisine developed in the royal kitchens of the Mughal emperors, starting from the rule of Babar, who established the Mughal Empire in India in the 16th century. His autobiography called Babarnama mentions about various food items, including kebabs prepared out of sheep's meat. The Mughlai cuisine presents a mix of Indian cuisines with that of the Persian cuisines. The different sultans of the Delhi Sultanate, who ruled various regions of India from Delhi, that includes the different Turk and Afghan Muslim dynasties, introduced the use of tandoor, kebabs, keema, naan, etc. However, with time, these items developed as an integral part of the Mughlai and Indian cuisine. Mughlai cuisine has a profound influence on the culinary styles and regional cuisines of present day India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan as well. And its cooking style is applied in traditional North Indian cuisines, particularly in Delhi and Uttar Pradesh, as also in the South Indian city of Hyderabad and Telangana. The Mughlai cooking technique also has a profound influence in the Awadh region, which eventually led to the development of the Awadh, or we can say Awadhi cuisine of Lucknow. The Mughals were Muslims by religion and thus did not eat pork, and Hindus did not consume beef. Thus, meat of these two were not part of Mughlai cuisine. Among the most distinctive features of Mughlai cuisine are the unique use of combination of ground and whole spices, and the distinguishing aroma that gives each dish a unique and exotic taste. Extensive use of milk, cream, and butter in various gravies and curries makes the recipes even more appetizing, with foodies ending up licking their fingers. The different spices as saffron, dry fruits, ghee, and other dairy products makes the traditional Mughlai cuisines quite rich and heavy. However, more lighter versions that are low in fat contents are tried and tested nowadays by the more health conscious people but enthusiastic foodies as well. The Mughlai dishes are varied, both vegetarian and non-vegetarian, starting from biryanis, pulaus, naan, kofta, kebabs, pasandas, different tandoori items to a wide range of sweet dishes like sheer korma, shahi tukda, kheer, kulfi, and firni. Notable Mughlai dishes includes biryani, Mughlai paratha, murg kebab, Mughlai keema matar, haleem, nargisi kofta, murg musallam, malai kofta, reshmi kebab, navratan korma, shahi rogan josh, rezala, pasandas, shahi kaju aloo, boti kebab, murg chap, murg tandoor, kachari keema, and meat darbari, among many others. So that was a very small, a little brief about the Mughlai cuisine. And now I would like to keep the dais, keep the platform to Honorable Shahanshah Mirza for his inputs, for his thought sharing, and his wonderful presentation for all of us. Welcome, Shahanshah Mirza.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rajan Makkar, for giving me an opportunity to interact with students of Gateway Institute of Hotel Management. Good morning, friends. I consider this to be an honor to interact with students of Gateway Institute of Hotel Management, faculty members, and all those our friends, who are watching us from different parts of the world. This morning, I'll be talking on Awadhi Zaike, but before that, I think it is important to go back slightly in history and talk about how it all evolved. As you can understand, any dish does not happen all of a sudden. It's not a chemical experiment. It originates, it evolves, and then it takes the final shape. So let's start our conversation. I'll not call it a talk because it is not an academic talk. It is more of a conversation. It's more of a storytelling. And Dr. Makkar has been very kind. He has said some very good things about me. And I hope I'll be able to live up to your expectations. So friends, we are Indians. We live in this great nation of India. India is the 7th largest country in the world, the 2nd most populous country. But if you ask me, I would like to consider India like a mini universe. We have got so much diversity in terms of language, religion, custom, caste, tradition, food habits. On one hand, we have got mountains, we have got forests, we have got desert, we have got rivers, we have got plains, we have got highly fertile regions, we have got regions where we don't get rainfall for months together. So India is an extremely diverse country, a country in which there is a lot of diversity. There are 130 million people, and in that respect, I would like to consider India as a mini universe. And I'm very happy that I'm living in this country and I'm getting exposed to so many different good things of life. So today's talk, Awadhi Zaike, is about the rulers of Awadh and how they influenced the language, culture, and food habits of North India. In order to understand that, we have to go back about 500 years in history and start a journey from the time Zahiruddin Muhammad Babar came to India. Zahiruddin Muhammad Babar was the ruler of a tiny kingdom in Fergana in Central Asia. He was an extremely ambitious man. Physically, he was very strong, and he was not satisfied with just ruling Fergana. He wanted to expand, he wanted to explore, he wanted to, capture possible large part of the world. And he started moving from Fergana. He moved to Samarkand, he won, he lost, then he came to Kabul, he captured Kabul, and then at the invitation of a local Indian ruler, he came to our country. In the first battle of Panipat, which took place in 1526, he defeated Ibrahim Lodi. That was the first time gunpowder was used in India. And after defeating Ibrahim Lodi, Babar decided to establish himself in this country. And he laid the foundation of the great Mughal Empire. When Babar started living over here, he did not like few things. For instance, he badly missed the fruits, the meat of Samarkand. He considered the fruits and meats of Samarkand far superior to what was available locally at that point of time. But he liked fish because fish was not available in his part of the world.
Hello.
Babar is, one of those
Hello,
rulers.
hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes. Babar is one of those rulers whom I consider to be an extremely intriguing character, an extremely important character in the history of this country. Babar wrote his autobiography, which is a very, very frank autobiography in which he has mentioned many things. And because of that, we have been able to understand a lot of things that happened at that point of time. Friends, I often wonder if Babar would not have come to India, what would have happened? There would have been no Red Fort, no Jama Masjid, no Chandni Chowk, no Taj Mahal, and most importantly, no Mughlai food. So after establishing himself in Delhi, Babar did, which would gladden all of us. He called 50 cooks of Ibrahim Lodi, took the interview, and selected the 4 best cooks. Babar unknowingly did something which created a revolution in the food industry. He hired Indian cooks to cook Central Asian cuisine using mostly local ingredients. And this beautiful marriage of cooking Central Asian food by chefs, by cooks of Northern India using local ingredients created a revolution in the world of food. It gave rise to what we know today as the exotic, as the heavenly Mughlai food. He laid the foundation, and each and every Mughal ruler over the next several decades added something to that interesting layer. And over a period of time, the Mughlai food became better, more delicious, more exotic, more heavenly. As Dr. Rajan Kakkar had rightly mentioned, that Babar in his autobiography had mentioned some of the dishes which he liked. One of the dish was this lamb kebab, and the other one was surprisingly a dish called chichi, which is a porridge-like substance made from wheat flour, paste, meat, ghee, onion, saffron, and aromatic. Babar did not live long, and so he could not enjoy his presence in this country. When I say country, when I say India, I loosely mean Hindustan. We are so used to using the word India, so that, many times, I say India instead of Hindustan. So when I say India, you should understand that I'm referring to Hindustan of that time, which was very different from the present day India. The next ruler was Humayun. Can we have a picture of Babar and Humayun, please? I want to show the slides of Babar and Humayun. No, we will go back. This is Akbar. We have to go back, please. Can you go to the first slide, please? The slide before that. So anyway, so Humayun ruled for 4 years. Can we have the slide of Humayun, please? Humayun ruled for 4 years, and one of the things which Humayun liked was sharbat. So in his kingdom, fruits were being used for making sharbat. Humayun sympathized with the Hindus of his kingdom, and he passed an order saying that the consumption of beef will not be allowed, and it was being replaced with the meat of goat, fowl, and venison. Yeah, can we go to the next slide? This is a slide of Zahiruddin Muhammad Babar, the man who laid the foundation of the Mughal Empire. Babar, when he ascended the throne in Fergana, was 12 years old. So you can understand that, even if it is an exaggeration, how great this personality was. The next slide is of Humayun. Can we have the slide of Humayun, please? Humayun's wife, one of the wives of Humayun, was a woman by the name Hamida Banu, who was of Persian origin. And because of her, saffrons were used in the Mughlai cuisine. And she added nuts, a lot of dry fruits, and that added a new dimension to the Mughlai cuisine. It became richer, it became more exotic, and naturally more delicious. So the next ruler was Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, and Akbar, as we all know, was the greatest Mughal emperor this country had produced. Akbar, like Humayun and Babar, was very much interested in food. But Akbar, being a true Akbar, which in Arabic means great, he employed 400 cooks. And Akbar had some very unique eating habits. He would eat once a day. He would get up before his stomach was fully full. In fact, this is one of the thoughts that was being given by Prophet Muhammad to us, that you should not eat to your fullest, because if you eat slightly below your full capacity, then it helps in digestion and it is very good for health. Akbar also banned the eating of beef in his court, because he did not want to hurt the sentiments of his Hindu and Jain friends. All these are mentioned in Akbari. If we can have the slide of Akbar, that would have been very nice, but in case there's some problem with the slide, I can go ahead. The food that was being served in the court of Akbar was served in gold, silver, stone, and earthenware dishes. It was being tied with a cloth, and it was being tested several times before it was being served to Akbar. In those days, one way of killing the ruler and head of state was by poisoning the food. In those days, we didn't have the luxury of chemical laboratories, so that is why the food was being checked at regular intervals, so that the food is safe for human consumption. It may come as a surprise to our young friends that the chickens that were being served to Akbar, they were called the palace chickens. They were being hand-fed with pellets which were flavored with saffron and rose water. They were being given a daily massage of musk oil and sandalwood. And as a result, these chickens had a very muscular body. So when it was being cooked, it was naturally very, very delicious. Akbar had a lot of matrimonial alliances in the present day Rajasthan. And because of that, there has also been a lot of influence in the Mughlai food. Some of the chefs in that part of the world were absorbed in the Mughal Empire, and they started cooking the food for Akbar and his people. The ice that was used for cooling water was used to come from Himalaya, and Akbar had a very efficient courier system, and it ensured that the ice would reach Akbar court. The next ruler was Shah Jahan. We all know Shah Jahan because of fabulous Taj Mahal that he built, and which is one of the biggest tourist attraction in India. Can we have a slide of Shah Jahan, please? If in case there's a problem, it's okay, it's fine. Shah Jahan shifted his capital from Agra to Shah Jahanabad. One of the reasons that was given why he shifted his capital was because the roads in Agra were too narrow for the imperial procession to pass. And so he thought of moving his capital from Agra to Shah Jahanabad. But when the capital was shifted, he was being told that a lot of people are falling ill. So he called his Hakim and he said that, please find out why the people are falling ill. And it was being told that the people are falling ill because the water of Shah Jahanabad is not good for drinking purpose. So he told his Hakim to do something because there is no way he could have shifted his capital back to Agra. So the Hakim suggested that while cooking, the chefs should use turmeric, coriander, cumin, and chilies. That would negate the bad qualities of water, and it would make water fit for human consumption. And on the advice given by Hakim, turmeric, chilies, coriander, and cumin were being used in the Mughal cuisine. And this was the turning point in the Mughal cuisine, the Mughlai food. Before that, like any other Central Asian food, the Mughlai food was very bland. But after turmeric, chilies, coriander, and cumin were added, and later tomatoes were added, the Mughlai food became hot, it became more red. And a new chapter started in the Mughlai food. Shah Jahan used to take the water of Ganga and rainwater for cooking purpose. He was being told that the water of Ganga, if it had been mixed with rainwater, would create delicious food. And that is what his chefs used to do. Shah Jahan, before eating, he used to set aside a portion of the food for poor. And he used to ensure that, this food reaches the poor before he used to begin eating. We all know Shah Jahan as, the maker of Taj Mahal. But, he also had a tremendous human angle. After eating, Shah Jahan would like to spend several hours in the banquet discussing and just relaxing. The last established ruler in the Mughal Empire was Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb was a very, very devout Muslim. He did not believe in the pomp, glamour, and splendor of his father, grandfather, and ancestors. He was, for most part of his life, he was a vegetarian. And one of his favorite dish was kubuli, which is a pulao made with Bengal gram and basil. And he used to have this with curd. Aurangzeb was also very fond of mangoes in particular and fruits in general. Food always played a very important role in the Mughal Empire. And food was used for the purpose of diplomatic etiquette, for forging friendship, for making new friendships, for social gatherings, for different other purpose. And the people had realized that food is a great unifying force. However, in 1707, Aurangzeb died. And I consider that to be, once again, a turning point in the Indian history, because that was the time which marked the end of an important era. After the death of Aurangzeb, a number of provinces started declaring independence because the central leadership in Delhi had become very weak. There were a lot of infightings, there were political instability, and provinces like Hyderabad, Awadh, Bhopal, Lahore, Kashmir started declaring independence. In 1709, A young prince from Khorasan. Khorasan is a place in Iran. His name was Sadat Khan. He came to India for his career growth, if you want to say, and he was being employed in the court of Mughal emperor. He was being given the governorship of Akbar. And in those days, there was a lot of rebellion. But Sadat Khan was a strong person. He was a very good administrator. He was being able to quell all the rebellion that took place. And in 1722, he laid the foundation of the Awadh Empire. The Awadh Empire, which lasted for 134 years, added a new chapter to the history of our country. Sadat Khan was later known as Sadat Khan Burhanul Mulk. And friends, Sadat Khan was a Persian, and the Awadh rulers were Persian by origin. By faith, they were Shia Muslims. And because of this Persian influence, the Mughlai food, when it transformed into Awadhi food, one of the things that resulted was the sophistication in Mughlai food. The fourth Nawab of Awadh dynasty was Asif-ud-Dawla. He was a man who built a lot of monuments. He wanted to rival Delhi in terms of architecture, culture, and he did succeed to a large extent. Can we have a slide of Asif-ud-Dawla if it's possible? So Asif-ud-Dawla, like many other rulers, he was also fond of eating. It's been said that he had employed a cook, and that cook was paid 1,200 rupees in those days. So 1,200 rupees in 1750, 1760 must have been a lot of money. I leave it to your imagination to calculate what the worth would have been today. Asif-ud-Dawla built the famous Asafi Imambara, which is generally known as Bara Imambara. Now, it is very important to know why Bara Imambara was built. In 1784, there was a terrible famine in Awadh. A lot of people had become poor. They had no job, they had no food. The crops had failed. So Asif-ud-Dawla wanted to help them. But at the same time, he didn't want to give them charity in terms of doling out money. He wanted to respect their honor and dignity. So he came up with this idea of constructing a monument which would be a unique of its kind, which would be one of its kind in the world. So he told his people that I will construct an Imambara and I will employ X number of people in the construction process. And as a result, these people will get some job. Friends, Imambara is a place of worship for Shia Muslims. And it is being raised in the memory of Prophet Muhammad's grandson and his companions who had attained martyrdom in Karbala in Iraq in 680 AD. During the construction of Asafi Imambara, about 20,000 people used to work. During this famine, it was being seen that not only the common people but also the nobles were affected. So Asif-ud-Dawla gave an order that for the first 3 days, the laborers would work in the construction of Asafi Imambara. And on the fourth night, he would request the nobles to come and break what has been built. So in the night, these nobles used to come under the cover of darkness so that their honor and prestige is not hampered. And these nobles used to break what has been built. So it was like taking 3 steps forward and 1 step back. That way, the nobles as well as the common people got jobs, they got employment, and they got money, and they were being able to survive. During the construction of this Imambara, Asif-ud-Dawla also decided to give them food. So food was being cooked in huge cauldrons, rice, vegetables, spices, and it was being cooked in the dampuk style, where the pot and the lid were being sealed with the help of a dowel, so that the steam does not escape. This basically makes the food more delicious and nutritious. During one of the rounds, Asifullah got a whiff of the aroma coming out from one of the cauldrons. He liked it very much. So he told his people that I would like to taste this food. He was being told, कि हुजूर, ये खाना तो मजदूरों के लिए है. This food is meant for laborers. आप तो नवाब हैं. But Asifullah said, no, but still I would like to taste. And he was being served that food. He tasted the food. He liked it immensely. So he called his chef and said, I like the basic concept of the food that has been cooked. I want that you should work upon it and improve upon it, make it more delicious. So his chef started working on the food that was being cooked. The vegetables were removed, meat was added, saffron was added, the more exotic spices were added, and a final product was being created, which Asifullah immensely liked. And friends, that paved the way for biryani, the world famous biryani. I'll be talking about Calcutta biryani later. So, whenever you see Asafi Mambara, think about biryani, because perhaps if Asifullah would not have created Asafi Mambara, there would have been no biryani. The last Nawab.
Shahanshah, I'm sorry to interrupt in between. There is a very good question from Ms. Shalini Kapoor. That is, Agra being influenced by Mughals as no famous Mughlai dishes of Agra. Also, what is the reason Agra is not known for its food anywhere?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
And what is the reason Agra is not known for its food anywhere? This is the exact question.
When I talk about the Mughlai food, I just don't refer to, Delhi or any particular city. It is a composite culture, and Agra was very much a part of it. For example, the murabba of Agra is very famous.
Right.
And it was, considered a delicacy. All the regions, contributed. It is, very difficult to pinpoint that, which city had contributed to what extent. But since it was a composite culture, and I'm happy that, this ma'am has raised this question. The fact that the Hindus and Muslims lived in this country for so many centuries together, it gave rise to a composite culture which is known as the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb.
Right.
It is the assimilation of the culture, etiquette, tradition, customs of two communities. The Hindus borrowed many things from the Muslim community, the Muslims borrowed many things from the Hindu community. For instance, it may come as a surprise to some of our friends that during marriage, some of the customs that have been followed by the Muslims in India are not followed in Arab world, because these customs are Indian customs and these have been borrowed from our Hindu brothers. So it was the beautiful amalgamation. So the food that you are talking about, the Agra food definitely contributed in a big way to the Mughlai cuisine. So anyway, I was talking about Asifullah, and the last ruler of the Awadh was Wajid Ali Shah. He came to throne in 1847, and he was being dethroned in 1856 on a false charge of maladministration. Wajid Ali Shah was, like other Awadhi ruler, great connoisseur of food. So when he came to Calcutta to meet the Governor General, and he thought that Awadh would be handed back to him, it did not happen. So he decided to live in Calcutta, and he settled down in an area called Matia Bruj, and he created a mini Lucknow in Calcutta. So one of his contributions in Calcutta is the Awadhi cuisine, which we see in this city. Wajid Ali Shah, like many of his ancestors, had given a clean chit to his chefs, a clear hand that you try and experiment and make new dishes, improve the delicacy of these existing dishes. And during one of the experiments, one of his chefs added potato in the biryani, in the Awadhi biryani. The Portuguese had introduced potato in Surat. The first cultivation took place in Surat. And over the next several decades, it traveled to different parts of the country. It was being brought to Bengal by the English traders. In those days, potato was considered to be an exotic piece of vegetable, and it was more expensive than mutton. So when this potato was added to biryani, and it was being cooked in the dum cook style, it was being served to Wajid Ali Shah, he liked the taste immensely. So he told his chef that henceforth, whenever you cook biryani, make sure you add potato. The potato, as friends you can understand, is a very soft vegetable, and when it is being cooked in the dum cook style, it absorbs the aroma, the fragrance of all the exotic spices, rice, meat, saffron, cura, and the net result is become extremely delicious. The nobles liked this new concept of having biryani with potato. They went back home. They also told their wives, their cooks, to cook biryani with potato, and then it was being followed by the common people over there, and then very soon potato with in biryani became an integral part of Calcutta biryani. So there's always this hot debate going on: which biryani is better, the Calcutta biryani or the Lucknow biryani? Calcutta biryani is the only biryani which has got potato. People have asked me so many times that आपको कौन सा बिरयानी अच्छा लगता है, Calcutta की बिरयानी या Lucknow की बिरयानी? So anyway, I'll not answer that question. I leave it to your imagination, and all I can say that Calcutta biryani is good, Awadhi biryani is good, and please enjoy both the biryani. Yeah, you want to say something, please?
I like it's an honor we have with us Chef Davinder Kumar, who is Vice President of Food and Beverage Production at the Hotel Le Méridien, New Delhi, and he also enjoys the status of the President of the Indian Culinary Forum. Chef Davinder Kumar, I extend a very warm welcome to you. Can we have your very crisp message, sir? Chef Davinder?
Good morning. I can't hear you.
Yeah, let him come. Let him come. Naveenji, may I request you to please give access to him to switch on his.
Okay. First of all, congratulations for such a great initiative. I think it's it's such a subject that I was looking forward to it, because the Indian cuisine enjoys so much of history, and here it is. I think this is a cuisine which has 100 years of history. I'm really very happy to be part of this, and I've been just hearing few words from sir, from Azur, Mr. Mirza. I think it's wonderful. Congratulations. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming and joining us. Thank you.
So as I was talking about the Awadhi food, in Awadh, food played a very important role, especially the breakfast. The Awadh rulers and the people living in Awadh, they enjoyed a very laid-back attitude. In the evening, it was reserved for music, dance, mushera, dastan goi, and other forms of entertainment. As a result, the people used to sleep late, and they used to get up late. So the Awadhi breakfast was very late by today's standard, and it was very heavy. People used to have shirman with shami kebab, rogni roti, balai, jalebi. During winter, it used to be nahari, kulcha. Those who are very brave, they used to have magas, which is brain, and a lot of important decisions were taken over the breakfast table. I have heard from my ancestors that important decisions regarding, purchasing land, religious matters, complicated matters were being discussed over the breakfast. A lot of friendships grew over breakfast. And interestingly, a lot of matrimonial alliances also happened over the breakfast table. In fact, I met my wife for the first time over breakfast. So when I use the word table, for my young friends out there, I would like to say that, before this table came to be an integral part of a custom, we had this concept of dastarkhan. So people used to sit on the floor, and the dastarkhan used to be spread. The dastarkhan is a rectangular piece of cloth. You can call it a tablecloth in a modern day sense. But dastarkhan was very different because dastarkhan had floral designs. And suppose if I'm calling someone who's very important to me, so I would get a couplet in Urdu or Farsi embroidered on that. So when the person is sitting and facing the dastarkhan, he would see that the couplet has been written in his honor. So it was a unique way of paying respect. And if it would be a general dastarkhan, then the couplet would be in praise of Almighty. And people would sit all around that dastarkhan. Awadh was also known for its mannerism and etiquette. And like suppose if you are having a meal and someone is sitting next to you, he picks up a bowl and if he gives it to you, to help you in taking out from that bowl. It was desirable that before taking it you must do adab. That's a way of saying thank you. And there were also rules for how to say adab. It's just not like saying adab. There was a particular way, and the whole thing was very, very melodious, and it was poetry in motion, if I have to say. I think we are running out of time, so now quickly I will come to some of the important dishes that were part of the Awadhi cuisine that made Awadhi cuisine such a great cuisine. So let's start with Shami kebab. Shami kebab is one of my favorites, and I often ask people that why Shami kebab is called Shami kebab. And I've received a lot of interesting answers. When Awadh was at its pinnacle, a lot of people came from different parts of the world to work in Awadh. Some were in the army, some were some came as chefs, some came in administration. And a lot of people came from Syria. These Arabs were physically very strong and they served in the Awadhi army. When they came from Syria,
price comparison between the equipments, we ask for the various conditions of the suppliers.
When these people came from Syria, they came with their language, custom, tradition, their own style of cuisine. And they started cooking meat according to their style. They cooked meat, they cooked kebab, and it was immensely liked by the people of Awadh, and it became very popular. So this Shami kebab became a hit, and it was the contribution of these Syrians coming to Awadh. Now the question is, why Shami kebab is called Shami kebab? Shami kebab is called Shami kebab because the people who came from Syria were called Shami because in Arabic and Farsi, Syria is referred as Sham. Like how we call India Bharat, similarly in Arabic and Farsi we call Syria Sham. So in order to distinguish the style of meat that has been cooked by the Syrians, it was being referred as the Shami kebab. The other interesting kebab in those days was Galavati kebab. The fourth Nawab of Awadh, Asif Daulat, among other things, was also a person who enjoyed his food. And he also enjoyed eating meat. But towards the end of his life, he developed very bad teeth. He could not chew unminced meat. So he called his chef and said that, I want to enjoy meat, but because of my dental problem, I'm unable to do that. So please devise something so that the meat becomes very soft. So his chefs went back to the drawing board and, they did various experiments. And they came up with a solution where the meat became very, very soft. And that was the birth of Galavati kebab. To those who would be interested, the name of the chef was Hassan Raza Khan, who was being appointed as the supervisor in the royal kitchen, for this great experiment, if you would say. The other interesting dish in the Awadhi empire was Nargisi kofta. Nargisi kofta is a hard-boiled egg which has been coated with keema, meat, minced meat. And when you look at Nargisi kofta, to a certain extent, it resembles the human eye because the yolk looks like the eyeball and the outer part looks like the eye of a human being. And Nargisi kofta means Nargisi aankhe. In Urdu we say Nargisi aankhe, which means beautiful eyes. So if you want to flirt with someone, to my young male friends out there, if you want to flirt with someone, one way of saying that, one way of complimenting a woman is you can tell her that you have got Nargisi aankhe. And Nargisi aankhe, Nargis comes from the word narcissus flower, which has got where the flower is yellow, which is in the middle, and it is being surrounded by white petals. So these Awadh rulers, I'll speak to that part about that part later. They were also very poetic in nature. They were very romantic in nature, and they could have called Nargisi kofta by any other name. They could have called it, anda, gosh, something like that. But the sound Nargisi kofta, I think sounds very, very musical, and it is one way of paying compliment to others. In fact, over here, I feel tempted to quote a line from the great Urdu poet Faiz Ahmad Faiz. He writes, "Teri aankhon ke siwa duniya mein rakha kya hai," which in English means, "Beside your eyes, to me the world meant nothing." So so that was one way of complimenting people. The other interesting dish in Awadh was haleem. The origin of haleem, like many other dishes, are a bit sketchy. According to some, it originated in Persia. It was a Shia dish, and it was being served during the time of Muharram, where the Shia Muslims mourned the martyrdom of Prophet Muhammad and his grandson. And haleem was cooked and served because of its high nutrient value. It's a single dish. You can have it with naan. You can have it just like that. It's very filling, and it would stay in your stomach for a very long time. But the other school of thought says that haleem originated in Arabia. When I say Arabia, I don't mean Saudi Arabia. I mean Arab as a whole region. And the precursor of haleem was harissa. There's one of the oldest book on cuisine in Arabic, which dates back to 10th century. It was written by the Arab scholar Abu Muhammad al-Muzaffar. It says the name of the book is Al-Tabi, which means book of recipes. And there's a recipe of haleem over there, which is very close to the present day haleem. So, of course, this is also possible that, the harissa was the original form of haleem, and it was being brought to India by the Arab soldiers who came to Malabar coast. And from there, it spreads to different part of the country. The other famous kebab, is the kakori kebab. And anyone who has been to Lucknow, cannot miss kakori kebab. Kakori kebab, have got a very interesting anecdote which I would like to share with all of you. Kakori is a small town about 20 kilometers from Lucknow, and Kakori came into prominence when some nationalists in 1924, nationalists like Ram Prasad Bismil and Ashfaqullah Khan, they belong to the Hindustan Republican Association. And this Hindustan Republic Association was fighting against the British rule. They were fighting for India's independence. They had attacked the train and looted the British treasury, which was actually our money, your money, my money. And they took this money to buy arms and ammunition to fight against the tyrant British Raj in our country. And that is how Kakori came into prominence. There was a Nawab in Kakori. His name was Nawab Sayyid Muhammad Haider Kazmi. Like many other Nawab, he also enjoyed, inviting people and, feeding them and, talking to them, interacting with them. So once he invited a group of British officials for dinner, and they came and they enjoyed the food. So while they were leaving, one of the British officers commented that the meat that was being served was very coarse. He did not like the meat. And this Nawab, like many other Nawab, was very egoistic. He was very sensitive. And somehow, it hurt his sentiments. So he kept quiet. And next day, he called his chef and said that try to improve this meat. make it as soft as possible. And various experiments were conducted, various trial and error methods were conducted. And it is being said that the chef added koa in that meat, which made the meat very soft. And Nawab Sahab was very happy with the result. So he called the same set of British officers to his place, served them the food, and this dish was also given to them. So this time, the British officers were very happy, and that gave the birth to this famous Kakori kebab. The Muslim rulers, the Mughal rulers, the Awadh rulers, they were by and large meat eaters. They loved their meat. Of course, they honored the sentiments of our Hindu and Jain brothers, but at the same time, they enjoyed eating meat. But when they came to India, they realized that India was a very, very fertile region. We have hundreds of vegetables, and the Hindu population in India, many of them are vegetarian, they are still vegetarian, and they cook fabulous vegetarian dishes. So I would like to believe that these Muslim rulers were a bit selfish. They wanted to enjoy meat, and at the same time they wanted to enjoy vegetables. So they told their chef, to do something where they can enjoy best of both the worlds. So a lot of vegetables were being cooked. It is still being cooked in many Muslim homes, which has been punched with meat. For instance, this palak saag, spinach, it is being cooked in many Muslim houses with meat. Shaljam, turnip, it is being cooked with meat. Arvi is being cooked with meat. And this was a very beautiful amalgamation. So when I talk about history of food, I think that this fusion of meat and vegetable was also a very exciting moment in the history of our food. And fortunately, it is still being followed. And this, I wanted to share with our young viewers over there. There's a very interesting anecdote about Murg do Piazza. There was a person by the name Mullah do Piazza. He was in the court of Akbar. And people say that, he was the Muslim counterpart of Birbal. Of course, these are all figment of imagination, There are no historical records of all these things, People have, created these stories. And I want to share this story, saying that it's a story, it's a figment of imagination, but just to point out that, how times history can be distorted, how we create stories and over a period of time people tend to believe it. So the story goes like this, that once Mullah do Piazza had invited a lot of people to his house for dinner, and the turnout was much more than what he had expected. And as a result, he realized that he was falling short of food. So every time he would think that, he will run out of food, so he used to clap his hand, which was an indication to his chef to add more onion in the gravy. So his chef added more onions in the gravy, and it added volume and substance to the gravy, to the food. And this party went on. And the time came.
Shahanshah, I'm sorry to interfere in between. There is a very important point which came to my mind. Like, as you said, that royal person indicated his chef to add more onion petals to the gravy since there were more people joined him. So as we have bhendi do piazza or arbi do piazza these days on our international menu, so that means we need to have onions just double the quantity of the main ingredient, right?
Not at all, not at all, not at all. I think this is the story that has been created.
No. I'm saying that is how maybe the recipe must have been developed.
Yes.
Right. Like we have bhendi do piazza.
Yes.
Yeah, so in that kind of arrangement. And Shahanshah, may I request you that we are already heading towards the completion of the presentation because we have very interesting questions also. So I hope some of the stuff can be covered along with those, Q&A session. So
Sure.
in case we have time available after that, we would love to listen to the rest of the stuff, if with your permission, sir.
Sure. I'll just make a very small point over here.
Yes.
That Safdar Jung, who was the second ruler of the Awadh Empire, he was also made the governor of Kashmir, and that was a time when a lot of Kashmiris came to Awadh, and these Kashmiris came with saffron, and they came with a lot of their cuisine, and that added a new dimension, a new exciting dimension to the Awadhi cuisine. Things like mutton rogan josh that we enjoy today, shabde, gular kebab. These are all contribution of our Kashmiri brothers who came to Awadh. And some of these people, they were the Kashmiri Pandit, they were very good in administration. They knew Urdu and Farsi, and they were being absorbed in the Awadh Empire. And even today, there is an area in Lucknow which is known as Kashmiri Mohalla. So I think I have tried to cover in the short possible time, whatever I could. And I hope you all enjoyed this conversation about Awadhi Zaike, and I'm ready to, answer any questions that will come up. Thank you.
It was great, Shahanshah Mirza. It was quite informative and very, very interesting for all of us, for all the audience. Thank you so very much. Before we move towards the Q&A session, I must mention here at this point of time that we have a young girl with us today. She happens to be my ex-student from another institute, Priyanka Sharma. Priyanka Sharma is basically associated with the Swiss Airlines, and she flies to Switzerland from Delhi to Zurich.
Oh, how nice.
So she's again from the same background. And this morning I got a lovely message from Priyanka Sharma that, sir, I have seen your story. So am I permitted to attend this great session? So I was very happy to hear from her. And then she is finally here with us. So Priyanka is the chief of crew members with the airlines. And Shahanshah, basically, let me tell you something about the structure about Gateway Education and Rishihood University. These two are basically sister organizations. And as far as Gateway Education is concerned, we started in the year 2006. And I am directing the hotel school at Gateway Education. We started the hotel school in the year 2010. And then very soon, with his permission, the ultimate authority, we plan to transition into Rishihood University, which has already been launched from this year with 4 dynamic schools: the School of Creativity, the School of Entrepreneurship, the School of Education, and the School of Healthcare. So we have already launched the programs and look forward to having dynamic stuff as prospective citizens and students of these different professions. So with your permission, Shahanshah, I must move forward with the Q&A.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you. So my first question is, Shahanshah, to you. As Mughlai food has its own distinctive character and identity on Indian menus, Mirza Sahab, how would you describe the Mughlai food just in few words, in your own words?
The Mughlai food is prepared, using a lot of exotic spices. To my mind, it would be that, each spice has got its own identity, its own properties, its own characteristics. And all these should come out in a very, very subtle way. It should complement each other. There should be no overlapping. And the Mughlai food should not only taste good, but it should also look good. It should also smell good. In fact, people say that the smell of a food and the color of a food would indicate that, if the food has been properly cooked.
Right. Mirza Sahab, does Mughlai food interfere with Awadhi food, or it is the same? Please comment upon this, because people have this kind of confusion that Mughlai and Indian is the same. But as far as my understanding goes, Awadhi cuisine, it came from the Mughlai cuisines, the royal kitchens, and there was an influence of Mughlai kitchens to the new, Awadhi flavors, and it is basically a branch, you can say, the branch of that mother cuisine. Is that correct?
Yeah, you are right. When we talk about Mughlai cuisine, we actually refer to the 200 years of contribution of the Mughal Empire it all started with Zahiruddin Muhammad Babar in 1526, and in a way, it ended in 1707 when Aurangzeb died. The Mughlai cuisine, it evolved in those 200 years. Different rulers contributed in their own way. And I would say that the Mughal rulers, they added flesh and skeleton. The Awadhi rule started from 1722 and it lasted for the next 134 years. So they added a new shape to the Mughlai cuisine. It became more sophisticated because of the Persian influence. Even today, if you see the Persian food and the Arab food, the Persian food is far more refined, far more sophisticated compared to its Arab counterparts. So, in a very common sentence, if I have to make it, I would say that Awadhi cuisine is an improvement on the Mughlai cuisine. It added sophistication, it added finesse, it added a new angle. But the base was Mughlai food, and the Awadh rulers, because of the Persian influence, they made it far more sophisticated.
Great to know. Great to discover, Mirza Sahab. If I ask you, Mirza Sahab, being from that royal family, what are your favorites from the Mughlai Zaika? Your personal favorites?
It's like taking a 6-year-old child to a shop full of candies, and you tell that child that please select one candy. So the child is confused.
But still,
but anyway, to answer your question, I would say Shami kebab, mutton biryani, sheermal, galawati kebab, shahi tukra.
Great, sir. It is so mouth-watering and irresistible. And Mirza Sahab, if I ask you to your assessments, where you have tried the best Mughlai dishes, not at your home, at your place, but outside, maybe in Lucknow or maybe in Kolkata, to your opinion, who is the best chef? And who basically is able to justify, who is able to do the justification to the authentic Mughlai recipes?
If you're talking about on the commercial side, then I would say the ITC in Calcutta, the Dampok, they make fabulous food. I don't remember the name of that particular chef, but I have tried the food over there many times, and it's very good.
Okay, right. Mirza Sahab, what were the sole ingredients used in that era? I'm sure you must be having information. Sole ingredients means the authentic ingredients, the authentic, to give shape to the authentic real recipes, which were very traditional and authentic to Mughlai recipes.
A lot of exotic spices were added, and it was being added in a very particular proportion and in a particular sequence. So suppose you are adding A, B, C, D, so it has to be in that order, A, B, C, D. You can't change the order, because if you change the order, then the impact would be different. A lot of chefs were being employed, and they were being told that you have to cook from point A to M, and another set of chefs were called, and they were being told to cook from N to Z. The idea was that no single chef should understand the secret of entire cooking.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, and in many homes, it was also seen that a lot of chefs were being called, and they were being told to cook for say 20 people, and there were just 3 or 4 people in the house. So, and then the food was being distributed. So the idea was that these chefs should be told to cook on a day-to-day basis, so that they are in the practice of cooking. And if if they are just sitting idle, then they may forget the art of cooking. So everything comes by practice, and cooking is also one of them. So they were being told to cook on a day-to-day basis, so that they can stay in the game. But to answer your question, I think apart from all this, one of the most important thing that I have noticed, and I have heard, and I have read, is that the cooks and chefs in those days, they were very, very passionate. I'm not undermining today's chefs and cooks. I have high respect and regard for them. But in those days, some of these chefs treated cooking as a religion. They were very, very passionate. If time permits, I just want to narrate an incident in 2 minutes, which will be very interesting to our viewers. In 1980s, Feroz Khan, the famous Bollywood actor, had made a film, and that film was a super hit. So he wanted to celebrate the success of his film, and he invited a chef from Calcutta whose name was Uttan. Uttan's ancestors had come with Wajid Ali Shah from Lucknow to Calcutta. So Uttan went to Bangalore to cook Calcutta-style biryani for Feroz Khan and his friends. And Uttan cooked the whole day, and in the evening when the party started, Uttan was there. And then after some time, Uttan called the manager of Feroz Khan and said that, I want to go back to Calcutta tomorrow morning. So the deal was that, Uttan and his team would go to Mysore, and then they'll come back, and then, they will visit all the important places in Bangalore. So, it was a 3-4 day vacation for them, apart from whatever money Uttan had demanded. And for Feroz Khan, money was not an issue. So the manager of Feroz Khan was very upset. He said, okay, but what is the matter? Why you want to go tomorrow? You are supposed to go after 4 or 5 days. Tomorrow you are leaving for Mysore. So Uttan said, no, I don't want to stay. We want to go back tomorrow morning. So after much persuasion, Uttan told the reason why he is upset. He said that, from morning I have been cooking over here. I have put in my best, and whatever you have told me, I have done that to the best of my knowledge and ability. And over here I see that, people are drinking. Log yahan sharab pee rahe hain. So sharab ke nashe mein, how will they appreciate the food that I have cooked?
Exactly.
And Uttan said, I don't want any money. I had demanded X amount of money from you. You all had agreed, but I don't want this money. I just want to go back. Uttan took it as an insult to his art. अब कितने लोग अपने प्रोफेशन में इतने डेडिकेटेड होंगे, इतने डिवोटेड होंगे, कहना मुश्किल है.
That's Mirza Sahab, that's a very strong message to the students, those who aspire to be professional chefs in this dynamic hospitality industry. Bravo! I must appreciate. Thanks to you for sharing this small story. Mirza Sahab, often there are mentions of the use of gold, silver, and pearl in Mughlai food. What was its significance, or it was just to exhibit royalty?
Gold and silver are the noble metals, which doesn't oxide with other things. And it was being used even in Egypt by the pharaohs. It was being supposed to give long life, good health, and for men it was supposed to be considered, it increases the sexual powers. But in those days, gold and silver were being used for its antibacterial properties. The food that was being served, it looked good. Even today, you will see that, in some of the sweets, they have a silver vara.
Right.
So that is antibacterial and antifungal. The fly will not come and sit over there. These gold and silver, they were being beaten, for several hours. And the net result was that, there used to be a very, very unbelievably thin layer of sheep, and that was being used in cooking. So, of course, these royal people, at times they wanted to flaunt their wealth, and gold was always a precious metal, and so was silver. So it was being added, and it definitely added a lot of medicinal properties. Gold, for instance, is considered to be a hot metal, whereas silver is considered to be a cold metal. And silver is being said, it helps in digestion, it keeps your stomach cool. So, apart from the flaunting aspect, it also had a lot of, medicinal value. And since they could afford, they used it.
Fantastic, fantastic, Mirza Sahab. Mughal emperors gave a great importance to the waters of Indian holy rivers, including Yamuna and Ganga. I think sometime back you mentioned about Ganga Yamuna tradition or something like that. So Ganga and Yamuna for making drinks and for cooking respectively, means water from Ganga was used for making drinks, and water from Yamuna river was considered to be good for the cooking purpose. So what was the thought behind it, or what was the philosophy behind it?
The Mughal rulers, they were always in the learning process. They wanted to learn new things. So when they came to this part of the world, they realized that Ganga is worshipped. The water of Ganga is used for cleaning purpose, and Ganga flows from Gangotri, and Ganga is being worshipped over here. We talk about Ganga Maya.
Right.
So and they wanted to honor the river in that sense. All the major civilizations of the world have survived on the banks of important rivers, and Ganga and Yamuna were two major rivers of this country. They used this water because they found it very conducive. Scientific research have shown that the water of Ganga has got antibacterial properties. It doesn't get spoiled very quickly. There's a very long shelf life. So they use this water along with rainwater for making food. And as I said, that these chefs, they always experimented with different style of cooking to get the best possible result. So when this formula was adopted, they found that the food that is being cooked is very, very delicious, and it was one way of respecting the river, one way of honoring the river. And as we all understand that water is an important source of life. Indus civilization, one of the possible reasons for the decline of Indus civilization was the river went dry. There were no monsoon for several years. So it was saying that I hold these two rivers in very high esteem, and that is why the water of Ganga and Yamuna were being used.
That's correct. And I think that was again paying respect to the natural resources.
Yes, definitely.
Right, right. Mirza Sahab, we would love to discover through you the dining protocols. This question is close to my heart, and I really want to experience that that learning through a person like you. So my question is, we would love to discover through you the dining protocols. I'm sure you must be practicing at home, either while dining with the family, or at times you are hosting some meal session for some very important guests at your place. So, which you must have inherited, of course, from the previous generations. So, what is that royal practice? What is still found in your family? Dining protocols means that should include mannerism, etiquette, and then styles, the soft, the soft features, or maybe laying the dastarkhan, as you mentioned earlier. Dastarkhan means the traditional dining table and all that stuff.
When we invite guests, it is usually for dinner.
Okay.
Because you get the whole day for preparing the food. And naturally, when you're inviting guests, you would like to serve fresh food. We make it a point to invite the whole family.
Okay.
Because that is one way of paying respect. It is a custom in our house that when someone comes, when we eat food with that guest, we ensure that his driver, and if there are some important personality, if he comes with his security guard, the security guard also eats the food simultaneously.
Okay.
ऐसा नहीं हो कि हम लोग खाना खा लिए और वो बेचारा भूखा बैठा हुआ है और जब खाना बच गया तो फिर उसको दिया जाए. The food is being served to him simultaneously.
Like the same food served to everybody.
The same food that we have, the same food is also being served to him. We live on the first floor, and the ground floor is empty. So the driver or the security guard is called, and he's being seated in the ground floor, and one of the staff goes and gives the food to them while we are having on the first floor. While having food, my father sits at the head of the table, and the most important guest sits on his right hand side, the first chair on the right.
Right.
And his wife sits opposite him.
Right.
It is one of the Indian tradition that you request the guest to take first. So the guest has to take first, and only after the guest has started eating that we also start eating. Of course, we use a lot of cutlery, but in order to enjoy Mughlai and Awadhi food, I'm happy you have raised this point, but in order to enjoy Mughlai and Awadhi cuisine, I think it is very important to use your fingers.
Right.
Because when you're using a spoon and a fork, you are depriving your finger the sensation of, paratha, kebab, rice, curry, gravy, salad. And fingers also have got sensory nerves. So, the moment, you touch a paratha and the paratha is hot, it is soft. So, the brain sends you a message that, it's a soft paratha. So, it helps in the overall experience.
Right.
And that is a part of, the cuisine. We try to use old cookeries. Some of these cookeries are almost 150 years old, and we feel very privileged that using them. And I often tell my guests that, when they are having dinner, I said, close your eyes for 10 seconds and enjoy the food that you are having on these crockeries, and think when these crockeries were initially used 140, 150 years ago. The world was so different, so different. And it is all about, recreating history, all about, making the meal more enjoyable, making the experience far more enriching. In olden days, when the guests used to come, we used to sprinkle rose water, and when that was one way of, welcoming the guest. And when the guest would leave, again you sprinkle rose water. And I have heard from my ancestors that, when the guests are leaving and you don't sprinkle rose water, so that's a polite way of saying that the guest is not welcome the second time. And generally, men and women, they eat together. Children have a separate room, where they go.
Right.
I'm blessed with 2 daughters, and there's a difference of 10 years in age between the two. So my elder daughter and the younger daughter, they can cater to children of, different age, those who are 1 or 2 years older than them, or, a few years younger than them. So that way, we are able to cover the children part as well. But we eat the same food. And it is also a tradition in our house that, when the guests are leaving, you pack a certain quantity of food with them, so that, those who have not been able to come, or, if everyone has come, they can enjoy the same food the next day.
All right. That's a very nice gesture.
And there's another thing which my father used to do, when he was in good health. When he's inviting someone, in a very subtle way, he will try to find out what are the dishes you like. So suppose, you like the mutton rogan josh, you like shirma, you like galavati kawa. So he would get all those dishes prepared for you.
Right. That's lovely, amazing, like mesmerizing. I mean, it is all about having that kind of royal experience. I can feel that. So great to know. Shahanshah, I'm sure at your place you must have received a set of documented, authentic recipes from the royal kitchens. I'm not asking you to disclose those precious recipes and priceless recipes, but then just curious to know that do you have some kind of that kind of documentation where you have those heritage recipes properly recorded and written?
Yes.
Okay. So, do you still practice?
In our people were very passionate about cooking.
Okay.
And each and every family had its own cooking secrets.
Right.
The secrets were very close to their heart.
Okay.
And in many homes, even today, the finer aspects of cooking are not taught to daughters.
Oh.
They are being taught to daughters-in-law.
Okay.
Because after marriage, people think that, the daughters will go to some other family and the finer aspects of cooking may be leaked. So, so they want to keep it very close to their chest. So they teach it to their daughters-in-law so that it remains within the family.
Okay.
Now, by God's blessing, we have got 2 daughters. So, so yes, you are right. We have got some fabulous recipes dating back to that glorious era. And I welcome you. Please come to Calcutta and we'll have a meal together. And it's for you to judge that how good it is.
Sure, sir. That's an honor for me. In fact, I must say one thing, Mirza Sahab, as far as my information is concerned, the poor man's need in India, which is the combination of cereals and pulses, which is khichdi, So khichdi was so much liked by the Mughal emperors that they passed on instructions to their royal chefs to do further research and improvements in the recipes. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
So, in our system, like one of the trustees, our executive chairman, he happens to be an admirer and appreciator of the dish called khichdi. So he likes khichdi so much. I still remember when I joined this organization, once it was mentioned by him that he likes khichdi, and I still remember that. So I would request you to share one good recipe so that not exactly the royal recipe, maybe some replica of that or some substitute of that, so that we can practice at our training kitchen and we can
Khichdi, I'll mail to you the recipe of khichdi, but I would like to narrate something which is very interesting about khichdi.
it would be interesting.
A lot of these Mughal emperors and Awadhi rulers, they enjoyed khichdi for the simple reason that it's very light on stomach. But there's also another angle to khichdi is that a lot of people consider it to be very auspicious if you eat khichdi on a Saturday.
Oh, okay.
In our house, for many years, when my mother was alive, every Saturday, we used to have khichdi for lunch.
All right.
Uh, you know, it was very easy on the stomach. It was something very light.
Is
We
it
enjoyed eating.
Yeah, is it because of the reason that it is easy on digestive system, our digestive system, or there is some other reason?
Of course, it is easy on the digestive system, but it would be. My mother used to cook because she had this belief that it is very auspicious to have khichdi. It increases your prosperity, it increases your well-being if you have khichdi on a Saturday. I don't know from where she had picked up, and since it was a nice dish, we all relished having khichdi. Uh, in many houses, khichdi is prepared, but it is not called khichdi. They call it dal pulao. Just to get that feel good factor
Right.
that you're having something which is very frugal, very economical. But just to feel good, you don't call khichdi khichdi. You call it dal pulao.
But Mirza Sahab, as a student, what we have studied in our one of the subjects, which was nutrition for humans, we studied that khichdi has been termed as poor man's need in India, in our country. Why? Because poor people or the laborers cannot afford high protein diets like chicken or eggs or mutton or things like that. So at that time, like combination of cereals and pulses was such a superb combination that it provided all those nutritional values to the human body, what was required to generate that amount of great energy at a quite affordable price and cost. So it was a perfect substitute and still is a perfect substitute for non-vegetarian foods like chicken and mutton. So it has its own significance. At the same time, it is easy on our stomach and digestive system as well. Right. Mirza Sahab, the present shape and form of Mughlai food. What is your personal assessment and understanding on the quality, on the presentation, and the standard of ingredients? What is being used to produce Mughlai food today?
Oh, I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed.
Like some specific observations?
Unfortunately, people are exploiting the name Mughlai food and the quality of food that is dished out in many places. I'm not saying in all places. In many places, are totally substandard. It is nowhere near what an authentic Mughlai or Awadhi food should be. I always tell this to my friends and my family members and those who are younger than me that whenever we get food on our plate, we should be thankful to Almighty that He has been so kind enough to give us food. There are millions of people. Forget about the whole world, even in our country, in our own city, who go hungry. So God has been very kind to us that we have got food on our plate. So we must appreciate, we must be thankful to God that He has given food. But answering your question, I think some of the food that have been cooked and being sold as Mughlai food are terrible. one reason could be they compromise on the ingredients to a very large extent to cut cost. Saffron is, widely used in Mughlai and Awadhi cuisine, and saffron, as you know, is very, very expensive. And the adulteration in saffron is tremendous. It's very difficult to find, pure saffron. And the moment you compromise on saffron, I think 20% of the dish gets affected. Then, there are certain ingredients. In olden days, we had a system where the spices used to be ground. Now we have this, powder form. Of course, it saves on, it is very convenient, but then, the quality suffers. And a lot of people, without proper knowledge, they have started cooking and selling and marketing, which has affected the overall image of this Mughlai cuisine. And as I said earlier in my talk, that, the Mughlai cuisine and the Awadhi cuisine, each spices should be very subtle. It should retain its own identity. The aroma should not overlap with that of the other. So overall, I'm disappointed, but there's very little I can do. But at the same time, I must say that there are some places which which makes very good food, and I've enjoyed their food, and I think they are doing a great service in serving Mughlai and Awadhi food.
Right. Mirza Sahab, my last question, and again, I must say this is equally important. There is a mention about 3 classes of cooked dishes in Mughlai food. Like something like food like Sufiana and a second and third class. I have no idea absolutely about that. So what does that indicate basically?
On certain days of the week, these Mughal emperors used to turn vegetarian for whatever reason. Okay.
Right.
Like Akbar, for instance, he would not eat meat in the month in which he had ascended the throne.
Oh.
His belief was that if I don't eat meat in the month in which I had ascended the throne, so that year would be very auspicious for me. They had their own beliefs and customs. So
Right.
the food that was being cooked, the vegetarian food that was being cooked in a certain manner, was called the Sufiana food. Sufiana is something very, very special, and it has been used in a positive term. The second class of food that was you're talking about, it was where rice and meat were being mixed together.
Okay.
And then the third one was a combination of everything. It was just to distinguish between the 3 classes of food, and it had got nothing to do with the class. Anyone could eat the Sufiana type, the first class and the second class food. It was just to distinguish, like we have nowadays vegetarian and non-vegetarian and continental and this and that. So that was one way of distinguishing food.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Lovely. So, Mirza Sahab, your daughters do they take full interest in cooking and knowing these things from the documented recipes and all that stuff? Do they practice cooking at home, or they're not at all interested in this?
My elder daughter graduated last year.
Okay.
And during this lockdown, all of us have been forced to stay indoors.
Right.
And this was the time that she picked up few things.
Okay.
And one of them was cooking.
Okay.
And the other thing was flying kites. We taught her how to fly kites. So I noticed that she had home science as a subject in school.
Right.
And she used to cook very simple, ordinary stuff. But during this lockdown, when she started cooking very well. The dishes that she made were fabulous. And I was really impressed. And I told my wife, I said that, with due respect to you, she cooks better than you.
Oh.
And if she continues in this way, a day will come that, when she will be known for her cooking skills.
Right.
You will be in the shadow. So I hope she continues taking interest in cooking, and she learns more and more dishes, and try to improve on her skill, and maybe one day she will be her cooking skills will be of a very high standard.
That's great, Mirza Sahab. It was so lovely talking to you. It was full of life. The session was so great. It was so informative for all the audiences, including me, myself. And Mirza Sahab, my special invitation to you, whenever you travel to this part of the country, like once the situation normalizes and we are back to our original world back, in that shape and form, I must, get you to our campus, and I would love to have you with us. Just look at the infrastructure, look at the students, how they practice their hospitality skills, whether it is food production lab or it is food service lab. And definitely we would love to have more stuff from your end. We would love to listen to the valuable comments from your side, and then bless these kids so that they reach to those heights. And wherever they aspire to be, they must be blessed with that. Thank you so very much, Mirza Sahab. Thanks for being with us. And I would request you now for some special comments, whatever comes to your mind, and then we shall close today's session. As I know that you have to head towards your office as well. It's a working day for you. And thanks for sparing that time for all of us.
Dr. Makkar, sorry, I have a question.
Yes, please, Chef DK, yes.
Mr. Mirza, it was wonderful listening to you. As a chef that I've been in the profession over 5 decades now, nearly 5 decades. Although this cuisine is very close to my heart. This is I've been reading this book, right? This was presented to me, and after having written couple of books, so I had to study this also. So would you recommend I have 2 things to ask you. Number one, other than this, is there any book that you would recommend or reference?
Just wait for a few more months and then I'll tell you the name, sir.
Oh, I can get some indications.
There was one issue just now I heard you saying, which is a problem today, is maintaining the originality or authenticity of any cuisine. It's really alarming. My question is, you think this cuisine, unlike other heritage, culinary heritage, is really been preserved, that we can be, of course, we are proud of our cuisines, but because it's a matter of great concern today that we are losing authenticity as we are modernizing. So what are your comments on that? And what efforts are being made to preserve culinary heritage?
I think, culinary habits, like any other thing in our country or in the world, it keeps on evolving. What is valid today, what is practiced today may not be practiced after 20, 25 years. And we have to accept it. But at the same time, I think it is very important for people like us who are interested in history, heritage, culture, cuisine, to preserve, what has been handed over to us by our ancestors. Like Rajan had talked about khichdi. Khichdi is a wonderful dish, which was being devised by our ancestors, and it's so light on the stomach. It has got tremendous health value. So I think, people like us should try to retain as much as possible. And I'll give you a very small instance of, how it can be done. Last year, my nephew's marriage took place, and it took place in a 5-star hotel. And we had requested the 5-star people that, apart from giving your food, we will bring our own chef who will cook biryani. And, we got the biryani cooked in our style, and which was being appreciated and liked by all the guests. So this was, one small effort on our part, popularize, if you want to use that word. Of course, I don't know if that's the correct word, to popularize, what an authentic food looks like or tastes like. So I think, we should try to do that. And it is very sad that, we are losing some of our history and heritage. And anyway, it's like a fight, and, we should try to stem the damage as far as possible. I have been to many places, and where, in Calcutta, in some places, you have biryani, where they also give you a boiled piece of egg. So I refuse to have that biryani, because for me, biryani cannot have egg. I'm very fond of egg, but, I have it in the form of omelette, I have in fry, I have it, separately as a egg scramble. But, egg in biryani, for me, it's like murdering biryani. So, it is important for people like you to me to retain whatever we can.
So I personally feel, unlike any cuisine, because this remains a big concern today, to retain, to preserve culinary heritage in this country. I think that's very, very important. As I just heard you saying that somewhere you don't find authentic food. Now, you're having gone to the hotel and you still had to bring in that biryani, because that, typical Awadhi biryani prepared in Awadhi style probably couldn't be made by those chefs. So my point is that I think what do you think government is doing towards that? Like I hear that some book is coming up, that will help us to understand more about the real cuisine. But I think I truly feel as a chef that efforts have to be made at national level to preserve our culinary heritage in this country. Otherwise, we will, deviate from our, go to another track, because we may call it, kakuri kebab. But if you serve Sikh kebab as kakuri kebab, then, that's what I meant. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I totally agree with you. And as far as my knowledge goes, I don't think the government is doing anything. Um, but there's a channel. It's called Epic Channel, if I remember correctly, and there they try to show these old cuisines of our country, of different regions. And I had the opportunity of watching a few of these their programs, and I find that they are doing a good job. So, having said that, it's say like a Gateway Institute of Hotel Management. You all have a very nice platform. You all can do something to retain, the old culinary culture of our country.
That's right.
That's
So, it is for people like us. We should not expect much from the government.
yeah,
ये हम लोगों की लड़ाई है, हम लोगों को लड़ना है.
Thank you so much.
appropriately said. Chef TK, I mean, you had a very, very appropriate point. So I think we are also representatives of the of our country. Everything cannot be left to the government to initiate. Like mentors like you from the industry and engaging the youth, those who are already enrolled into the system. So basically, responsibility lies on all the shoulders to bring back those heritage recipes into practice, and then constantly put in efforts to justify our profession and refine our products. So I extend my full contribution and support, sir. Whatever you tell us, we are ready to do under your mentorship and your guidance, Chef DK. We are available. We are at your disposal, sir.
Lovely. Thanks so much.
And Chef DK, before we conclude this meeting and before Shahanshah gives his concluding note, I would request you also to encourage and motivate our students in a very short message, short and crisp message.
I would say that, keep learning. Our profession is like ocean, you see, there's no depth. So, in my opinion, keep learning, keep refining your culinary skills. Never deviate from authenticity. Have a good foundation. The foundation can also be built if you, learn the basic skills, as Mr. Shahanshah just now mentioned, that everybody can make korma or biryani, but how many can make original biryani is a question. So that's it. That's my message. Thank you.
Very much, Chef DK. Thank you very much for your inspiring words. Shahanshah, now may I humbly request you to conclude this in the form of your crisp message to the students?
Thank you very much. It was wonderful interacting with all of you. I thoroughly enjoyed, and I hope those of you who had watched and listened to us must have also had a good time. I just realized that we are close to 2 hours. We have overshot our time schedule. I'm very sorry about that, but the topic is so fascinating, so entertaining, and it's so close to my heart. And I promise next time when I go to Delhi, I'll definitely pay a visit to Gateway Institute of Hotel Management. It would be lovely interacting with the students and faculty members. And before I end, I would like to quote a line from Zahiruddin Muhammad Babar's autobiography, The Man Who Started It All, he says that, enjoy the luxuries of life, Babar, for the world is not going to be had a second time. And with that, I conclude. It was lovely interacting with you. And I just noticed that, someone wants to know my email ID. So he can note down. It's s.mirza, S for Singapore, .mirza, M-I-R-Z-A, 100, @gmail.com. I repeat, s.mirza, M-I-R-Z-A, 100, @gmail.com. I'm a bit slow in responding to email replies, but I assure you, if I get an email, I'll definitely answer you, maybe, after a few days. And thank you once again, and Khuda Hafiz until we meet again. Adab.
Before that, Mirza Sahab, as you quoted the lines from the king that enjoy all the luxuries of life. So I must mention here, because I happen to be a little close to the lifestyle of our legend chef, Davinder Kumar. He's also of the same opinion and of the same philosophy. So he is a lover of all different finest brands of, whatever, of be it food or, accessories or gadgets or whatever. So he also enjoys to the fullest this life. Am I right, Chef DK?
Because life is one.
I know. True.
Such a lovely session. I thank everyone. Yes, Mirza Sahab, you are saying something.
As Chef had rightly said that, life is a learning process. So during this lockdown, I discovered many things. And one of the things that I discovered was, like in the evening, I used to go to my terrace and, and my daughters used to feed the grain, they used to fly kites. And now the monsoon has set in Calcutta. So, we have rain almost every day. So I remember that, a few years back, we had gone to Udaipur and I was being told that there was a Maharaja in Rajasthan who was very fond of clouds. And he had built a palace high up in the hills where he used to go and, he used to look at the clouds. We had gone to see his mahal. So I started noticing these clouds, and I found it very interesting, very enchanting. It looks very beautiful. So this was something which we see every day, from the time we are being born. But so it was a learning experience for me. So my message to my young friends out there that keep your eyes, ears, nose open. Look for avenues where you can learn. Life is full of learning experience, and as Prophet Muhammad said that you should learn from the time you are in the cradle till the time you are in grave. So every moment we can learn things, and this cloud thing came as a new thing to me, and there are many things which we overlook in our day-to-day life, but it's so enchanting, it's so beautiful. So I totally agree with you that we should learn, and the whole life should be a learning experience for us.
शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया शहनशाह, आपके टाइम के लिए, आपके वक्त के लिए, आपकी तवज्जो के लिए, और वो सब चीज़ जो आपने स्टूडेंट्स के लिए और गेटवे इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ होटल मैनेजमेंट और गेटवे एजुकेशन और रिशीहुड यूनिवर्सिटी के लिए आपने जो एफर्ट किया, मैं तहे दिल से आपका शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ. थैंक यू वेरी मच. Lovely. Thank you very much, audience. Thanks to the tech team. It was such a wonderful show. Thank you very much. See you soon. Thanks, Mirza Sahab.
Bye.